We need an intro. We gotta intro this.
Yeah, okay. Maybe, okay.
We just did 3 intros.
Monkeys go directly to hell.
Yummy, yummy, yummy.
Turn that.
Chips in my tummy.
Those
Welcome to
fucking
episode 38
chips
of
outta
Gorilla
here.
Radio
Chip
Show.
gang. Chip gang.
Boo, 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 boo.
Shut up. Let me just dump some chips out real quick.
Yeah. And then when you eat the chips, what are you gonna do?
I mute my mic.
Okay,
You're gonna
whatever
do
you
that
say.
thing you used to do where
I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you.
you forgot.
Yeah, do you remember
need to
like in the
unmute.
first 10 episodes, Greg would just have a bag
Click.
of candy
Click.
and would just go crazy at it.
And you'd
Every
forget to
episode.
unmute. You'd be like silent for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
and be like,
yeah, you
Greg,
would.
you want to chime in? And he'd be like, oh, fuck me.
I've been talking
It's a
for the
throwback
past 10
episode.
minutes. Throwback episode.
Yeah. No, but for real though, we were gonna start the Congo series, but we realized our fucking Vegas live episode is coming. It's like next. It's next up.
Yep. Vegas is approaching.
And we don't really want to kill the vibe.
Yeah.
Let's just say that the first episode of the Congo series is not like
You're
a.
gonna cry.
It's not like a very vibe, like Vegas friendly type of episode. It's a little. It's something that we'd like to save. So what we're doing this episode is a sort of prelude to the Congo series, which is
It's a
tentative.
little pre-cum for Congo.
Don't say that.
Little pre-cum for
It's gonna
Congo,
be
yeah.
serious
Pre-cum
though,
for
for real.
It's juicy, bitch.
Also, I guess this would be a great time to announce officially the release date for episode 1 of the Congo series, which I believe we determined will be the 26th of May.
No, it's like how Austin says, but we didn't know we were recording it. Who fucking knows what he thinks we're putting it out?
It's coming at the end of May, and then it's just gonna be straight like couple of episodes of the Congo. Like we're gonna do the whole
Yeah.
series, and then we're going
It's
back
the
to
summer
normal
of the
content.
Congo, baby.
The first episode
Yeah.
is mostly just background because I'm gonna be real with you all. I doubt most of you are familiar with like Congolese history, and I'm not.
I think most of you are stupid.
No, I'm not saying that to demean
I
anyone.
think
I
you're
just
all uneducated imps with
I think
just-
most of you are completely
incompetent-
incompetent.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying our listener base is like 18 to 25 basically, and they don't teach this in schools.
all stoned out of their
Yeah,
minds.
they don't-
There's
they
not a
simply
lot,
don't teach
not a lot of
this in schools.
Congolese history on Tumblr, is it, you fucking freaks?
not really, no. But yeah, so what we're going to be doing today is analyzing an analogous story, essentially. And we're going to use a pretty, the least well-known of the quote-unquote trimates, aka the 3 girls that Louis Leakey sent into...
3 girls.
Yeah.
1 jungle.
No, he sent them into 3 different jungles.
3 girls. 3 jungles.
The 3 women were Jane Goodall, of course, Diane Fossey, and Biruté Galdikas. Diane Fossey ended horribly, like just terribly, went god-awful. Jane Goodall is
Could've been worse.
famous and well-known, and Galdikas is a kind of unique case where she's not as well-known as Goodall or Diane Fossey. But she's still in Borneo to this day studying orangutans.
So, just like Jane Goodall, I have to ask, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think she's actually...
She's normal.
From what I've seen of her,
normal.
I respect her greatly.
Think she's normal?
I mean, I respect Jane Goodall greatly too, except
I don't.
the whole thing where she was saying there's too many people on planet Earth, which please don't say that. Come on. let's
Yeah, not a correct thing to say. Not
Be for
something-
real for a
yeah,
second.
Be so fucking for real.
So the trimates were these 3 women, but they were called
Were they like the Try Guys?
No,
you know,
not
the
at all.
Trimates?
Not at all
Were that
similar.
was that the bit they were
not
doing?
at all similar. They were called
Hey everybody, welcome to Factor Cap.
They were called Leakey's Angels after Charlie's Angels for a while, but I think everyone realized that calling
That
like
none of them are hot.
no,
That shit fucking sucked. That was lame as shit.
no.
Weird as shit.
I think they realized that maybe like referring to one of the first pioneering, trailblazing women scientists in America as a media reference of like 3 pinup girls for some like dude is like kind of demeaning and misogynist, so they started calling them the trimates instead, which is at least a better pun. I don't know. But anyways.
They're like the triumvirate.
They missed like monkey à trois.
Well, yeah, could have done that.
That's what we're calling them now.
So, her parents, she was born in Lithuania, and her parents fled to Germany in 1946 because of Soviet occupation. It's weird.
Who were they running from, huh?
That is weird.
Who were they running from, folks?
That is
Who
a little
were they
weird.
running from?
Like, I do understand. I've done a little bit of reading lately of...
I was about to say something anti-Soviet. We're going to fight.
And I did a little bit of reading recently of how the Soviets generally treated, like, occupied German areas immediately post-war, which all of the Allies did, for, like, everyone in this war did, for the record, but, like, I don't see why moving to Germany would have helped, but that's just me.
Well, they moved to the new fascist Germany, West Germany.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Their parents don't have Wikipedia. Or sorry, her parents don't have Wikipedia. I don't know why I made her non-binary. No, parents don't have Wikipedia pages, so I.
Yeah, who could know why, huh? Two Lithuanians who fled the Russian army.
But if they were like notable, then I feel like I don't know. We can only speculate. It's not like she talks about her parents, but regardless.
Wonder why.
So, at age 25, Galdikas and her husband, Rod Brindamore, went to Borneo to study orangutans. The sort of backstory to this is Leakey was a famous lecturer touring the West Coast by the time that Galdikas became his student. Leakey, of course, the famous primatologist that we've discussed multiple times, who sent Jane Goodall and Diane Fossey on their expeditions. She had to wait in a line for him to stop talking to like fans and like people who were like big fans of his work, trying to ask him questions about monkeys. And at the end of this line, she walks up and she's like, "Hey, can you like sponsor my study to go study orangutans?" And at first Leakey was like, I don't know, but he already asked Goodall to study orangutans, but she was very preoccupied with the chimps.
She loved her chimps.
So he
That's not true, actually. She doesn't like chimps. She likes dogs. Y'all know that? Crazy shit.
I wouldn't like chimps if I spent that much time in the wild with them either, to be fair.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
totally understandable.
Yeah, so
Hellish creatures.
Orangutans were the least understood of the great apes at the time that Galdikas asked. So Leakey was like, yeah, screw it, whatever.
Fuck it, we ball.
Yeah, fuck it, we ball. And he sent her and her husband, Rod Brindamore, no relation to the Hurricanes coach, by the way, of the same exact name.
Nobody fucking cares about hockey.
I do.
It's the fucking Canes, Greg. Have some fucking self-respect.
I only care about the Canes when I see some asshole in like a Bruins jersey. Like I did at the bar last week. I saw an asshole in a Bruins jersey, and I was shit-faced, so all I was doing was going, "I'll see you at the conference championship, dickhead." Like, he refused to make eye contact with me.
Wonderful. But yeah, so Galdikas and Rod Brindamore arrived in Tanjung Puting Reserve in Borneo, where Leakey and the National Geographic Society helped Galdikas set up her research camp near the edge of the Java Sea, dubbed Camp Leakey. Shortly after this, Leakey died, so...
Dead as hell.
So, she was kind of on her own for most of this research. And interestingly enough, I'm not sure how soon this happened, but pretty early on in her research, she divorced Rod Brindamore and left him for Pak Bohop, who was a Dayak rice farmer and tribal president, aka just an indigenous elder from the area she was studying. So she...
No way.
Yeah, no, she left her husband for just a more important dude in Indonesia. Like, her husband was just a photographer. She totally kind of owned him there. What can you do?
A little bit of an upgrade, as they say. No, a newer model.
No way. This is what he looks like?
I don't...
Who?
Why do you have to
Who
look
Google?
up everyone's face to, like... He's
Greg's
Canadian,
a
by the
visual
way.
learner.
Pak Bohap is not. I'm looking at him. You're not Canadian.
Oh, no. Rod Brindamore is Canadian. Pak Bohap is an
That's what
indigenous...
I'm looking up. I'm looking up Pak Bohap. He was a fucking stunner, dog.
Was he?
Yeah, he's got like the feathered hair, and I'm gonna put the shit in the Discord.
Let me see this, man.
Look at Pak. Who's that white baby though?
Oh my god. I would
Whose white baby is that?
Whose white baby is
Whose white
that?
baby is that? I know that's not mine.
Well,
Maybe the greatest sketch in all of history.
All right. When I first heard that she left him for a village elder, I was like, what's up? But, like, looking at it now, I understand, right? Like, you get it. Like, I can see where she's coming from.
More like the village daddy, if you ask me.
He's actually, like, very involved in her conservation work now. Like, he runs foundations for her. He's a cool guy.
I know, he's crazy.
He's a cool guy.
Now we gotta look this up. Hold on.
I think. If you find anything problematic about him, I didn't say that. I didn't mean it. I didn't know.
I didn't fucking know.
She just doesn't look like the old lady that she turned into.
I look up Rob Brindamore, and of course the fucking hockey dude.
Yeah,
came up.
no, he was just some Canadian guy who she met in college.
Some guy.
That's fucked up. Nah, she doesn't look like the old lady that she grew into.
Yeah, usually people look different when they become old.
No, but they still like look reminiscent of what they looked like young, but she doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Being 50 years in the Bornean jungle will probably change you a bit, to be honest with you.
Galdikas has remained in Borneo for almost 50 years while campaigning actively on behalf of primate conservation and preservation of rainforests. She continues her field research among the lengthiest continuous studies of a mammal ever conducted. How long has this study been going on? Her longest study.
She's been in the woods for 50 years?
Now, granted, she doesn't, like, live there necessarily. Like, she's the president of the organization that we're about to introduce. Obviously, that's headquartered in Los Angeles. But, like, she spends most of her time just studying orangutans in the wild. Like, the study is still considered ongoing for that reason. And she's been doing it since she's been 25.
Oh, wow.
So,
Gotcha. Okay. Well, she founded the Orangutan Foundation International, OFI, whose mission is to support, protection, conservation, and understanding about orangutans and their natural habitat while caring for orphaned orangutans and helping them make the transition back into the rainforest. Orangutans are famously need so much parental care until they're like 8 years old, right?
Yeah,
very
high parental investment.
Yeah. So, the OFI also educates the public and the government about orangutans, rainforests, and the issues around conservation and protection of the apes and their environment. Here is a quote. The OFI takes in ex-captive, hurt, and orphaned orangutans. Once the ape is in the care of Galdikas and her staff, it is raised if it is young or treated for any diseases or injuries in the care center. The orangutans in the care center are taken each day by their keepers to Camp Leakey to be allowed to play in their natural habitat. This is done to slowly acclimate the orangutans back into the forest so one day they can be released. Once the orangutan is old enough and deemed suitable, it is released back into the wild. Some orangutans never learn to fend for themselves and for that reason can never leave the care center and the staff. Some orangutans do not want to leave the base of the OFI where the staff eats and lives, and will venture back from time to visit the staff and volunteers. Aw, look at these guys, having a good time with their buddies.
These methods were not without some controversy, however. The orphaned apes were often psychologically damaged and difficult to control. Some even attacked guests and staffers. Researchers questioned the value of observing the orphaned apes, since their behavior was not necessarily representative of orangutans in the wild. Other concerns include the released orangutans spreading human diseases to native orangutan populations that would not have otherwise been acquired if not for long-term human contact. However, much of the backlash to Galdikas' work has been from the Indonesian Ministry of Forestry, who Galdikas frequently clashes with while lobbying against logging and deforestation. The Ministry of Forestry has alleged that Galdikas held a very large number of illegal orangutans in very poor conditions in her Indonesian home, prompting the government to consider formal charges in 1999. This is similar to Dian Fossey, who was kidnapped repeatedly and eventually murdered by those opposing her conservation work. We've covered Fossey's story before, but we'll revisit it once more in our Congo series.
So, there are a a handful of major threats to the natural habitat of orangutans, and these are things that Galdikas is lobbying against, among many other people. There's something you got to consider is there's a lot of Western scientists clashing with the government of Indonesia on conserving and protecting this wildlife and these habitats, and it does have a bit of a bad look when it's just like people from European countries trying to like you know what I mean, like tell.
It's bad optics, bro.
It's bad optics.
The optics are not good on this.
And these optics are not the vibe right now, bro. Not a good look, Chief.
Why the fuck aren't we sending, what's his name out there? Pack.
Well, he does, but, like, he does also get resistance, though. But, you know, there are some people who, again, we've talked about the idea of parachute conservation, where regardless of, like, considering external pressures, we just send in these scientists to, like, tell people, hey, you got to stop doing this. We got to protect the apes. Now, granted, we do got to protect the apes, but it's just there is a bit of a weird thing that arises when you try to just send people in and boss people around, because it does very much.
Is there?
It just.
Does that cause tensions, perhaps?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, sometimes it causes tensions. Now, deforestation of orangutan habitat is driven primarily by aquaculture, that's shrimp farms, wildfires, palm oil plantations, and industrialization. However, aquaculture and wildfires are currently not close to being the leading threats, actually, and habitat loss due to the development of palm oil plantations has slowed down significantly after 2007. Currently, the new major threat is industrial development, dominated by the palm oil processing industry. But why? Why is the palm oil industry so vital to the Malaysian economy, to the extent that the human and animal populations must suffer?
Okay, I'm so sorry. You sound exactly like fucking Tucker Carlson right now. But why? Why is the palm oil industry so vital?
Why is it like that?
I'm sorry for doing a Tucker Carlson.
Is Joe Brandon involved?
You said, but why? And I was like, that's kind of Tucker Carlson-esque. And then you hit, why is the palm oil industry so vital to the Malaysian economy?
I'm so sorry. This is what podcasting is doing to my brain.
But why?
But why?
But why, Batman?
But seriously, though. So let me try that again without doing the Tucker Carlson voice. Why is the palm oil industry so vital to the Malaysian economy, to the extent that the human and animal populations must suffer? In fact, why is...
You purposely avoided saying, but why?
Why...
But why?
So why is the palm oil industry so vital to the Malaysian economy, to the extent that the human and animal populations must suffer? Furthermore, how did this industry come about in the first place? I can make a couple of good guesses as to how it came about in the first place, but
Capitalism, Batman.
no more Joker voice.
Okay, no more Joker.
The best lens through which to observe these questions, as an outsider, involves the acknowledgement of two easy-to-remember facts. Indonesia is the world's biggest producer of crude palm oil, producing 59% of the world's supply. They are now branching into industrial palm oil processing because they don't want to get undercut in that department, but we'll get into that more later. Coincidentally, the British Empire occupied and controlled this entire geographic area for a significant amount of time during the 19th and 20th centuries. If you can believe it, folks.
It's quite interesting. Tell me more.
No. No, it's Change's turn, actually.
I'll tell you more. Well, Austin, instead of saying it's Change's turn, why don't you just wait for Change to fucking respond?
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah, dick.
Okay.
Dick. I'll tell you more, Greg.
Thanks,
I'll
Chandler.
tell you more, Greg.
Thanks,
I've got some
Chandler.
information that could be relevant to you right
I'd love
now,
to hear
and the
it.
questions you're asking.
Thank you.
So as you, Greg, may have guessed, there is a link between these two facts. The British government introduced palm oil trees to Malaysia in the early 1870s, and the commercial cultivation of palm oil began in 1917. In the 1960s, palm oil production was substantially increased in order to reduce the Malaysian economy's reliance on tin and rubber. Notice, if you will, that all three of those enterprises were created by and for the benefit of the British government. When the British invaded, they did so with the intent to establish factories and new trade markets. It could be argued that the modern economic structure of Malaysia was, in this moment, designed for the exclusive benefit of the British conquerors. When Malaysia declared its independence from the British Empire, it did not, most likely could not, restructure its economy around the needs of its people. Now I'm talking like Tucker Carlson.
The economy is simply functioning the way the conquerors wanted.
Don't you understand?
I understand. You know, there's a great book by Lenin. Y'all should read. You know,
What's it called?
Imperialism.
it's called Imperialism, the highest form of capitalism.
That's crazy.
It's a great one.
It's a great one. I think it might be really.
Is it relevant to this?
It might be really relevant
To
to
this
this discussion here. to this
Yeah,
discussion.
I think it might be.
You got any quotes you want to pull out, Greg? You got any quotes off the dome?
We're gonna stop responding to Trotsky, but that's not in there. That's the state.
We're all blocking Trotsky. Soft blocked. He's not on the Twitters anymore. We've taken the social media login codes from Trotsky.
We've sim-jacked Trotsky.
That was in State Revolution. That's what was said.
This is, of course, only one facet of the colonial exploitation endured by the Indonesian people, and we're not trying to underemphasize the role that history's other empires had in this destruction. We cannot broach this topic without emphasizing the impact of the Dutch and Japanese colonization of Indonesia. It is also important to keep in mind that Indonesia was merely one of the many colonial projects of the Dutch and Japanese empires, and that countless other people across the globe were subjected to the wrath and greed of colonialism and imperialism. The Dutch colonization of the East Indies had many of the same motivations as other colonial projects at the time, to secure and reap the benefits of markets ecologically exclusive to these Asian countries. The Dutch, crippled by self-imposed debt from the Java and Padre Wars, needed to find a way to recover economically. The way in which the Dutch did this was by establishing what is known as a plantation economy in Indonesia. The climate of Indonesia allowed the Dutch to harvest crops such as cocoa and later palm oil, crops which could not be grown in the climate of Europe, thereby granting them a trade monopoly by establishing plantations and enslaving indigenous people to work on these plantations. I was running out of air.
You do that anyway.
Yeah, you just like run out.
Whenever you read, you just read until you stop breathing, and then.
Do you know how I got these scars?
You know, Greg, if you die, you don't have to be on the podcast anymore.
I like it here.
So, as is probably obvious, the founding of these plantations, this plantation economy, permanently altered the course of Indonesia's economic development, as is evidenced by the fact that Indonesia is still, arguably, a plantation economy. They are, of course, undergoing rapid industrialization now, but with this comes something I feel the need to emphasize. The effects of colonialism on the colonized countries have not disappeared just because they are no longer under direct imperial control.
Next, the invasion of Imperial Japan. The Japanese invasion of Indonesia was a part of the Japanese policy of Asia for the Asians during World War II. That's a pretty good slogan. I like that one.
I don't. I feel like that's not good.
Jaren's listening to the devil on their shoulder right now.
I'm going to alter the definition of Asian. We're going to get rid of all the Japanese.
Oh my god.
South Asians are taking over. Clip it, I dare you. Clip it. The invasion of colonized Asian nations and transference of power from European colonizers to the Japanese imperialists, many Indonesian people were excited by the premise of liberation from their European colonizers. As you may have already known, the Japanese invasion of Indonesia was nothing more than a transfer of imperial power, not a liberation.
1000% the people listening didn't know.
1000% these fucking losers didn't know.
I had them all Stockholmed into liking me still, too. I hate you, but you need me.
With the Japanese invasion of Dutch Indonesia came the weakening of Dutch influence, but not the reduction of human suffering. Concentration camps were built, Indonesian men were forced into work, and Indonesian women were forced into prostitution. Similar patterns of human suffering were found in the many other countries that Japan invaded during World War II, and the scars this invasion left did not simply disappear after the Japanese surrender in the Pacific.
However, another pattern echoed throughout Indonesia, a pattern that could be found in Korea, in Vietnam, and China. A pattern of liberation in response to the years of human suffering.
The liberation of Indonesia from the British, the Dutch, and the Japanese began in 1945 and ended in 1950, with around 100,000 casualties to show for it. However, the incredibly destructive palm oil plantation industry continues at full force. In 2021 alone, Indonesia produced 46 million tons of crude palm oil, and an ever-growing palm oil processing industry. For example, every 1,000 tons of palm oil produced in the top 10 most efficient palm oil plantations in 2020 was associated with 3.2 hectares of deforestation risk. For the bottom 10%, least efficient, 18.2 hectares of deforestation per 1,000 tons of palm oil produced. This destructive industry, however, has over time constructed an urban proletariat, especially as of late, as with the increase of industrialization, and significantly cut down on rural poverty in Indonesia, lifting millions out of that poverty. This is a process that has been seen countless times throughout history, either for the benefit of the ruling class under capitalism, or through a series of land reforms organized by peasants' unions, typically witnessed in a post-revolutionary planned economy.
Austin, can you walk us through what does that mean?
Deforestation risk is just habitat that becomes at risk for being deforested or just becoming deforested. In terms of the top 10% of production, that is like the most efficient, the most productive of the plantations. The least efficient, the least productive palm oil plantations are associated with 18.2 hectares per 1,000 tons, while the most efficient and most productive are associated with about 3.2 hectares of deforestation per 1,000 tons produced. So, obviously, capitalism won out in Indonesia, right? Like, very clearly.
You hate to see it, but you know what? You're right.
Everybody know about Sukarno?
Yeah, no, the revolution didn't work, but they gained independence. They just continued under the capitalist model and continued.
Who led the revolution? Was there like a guy? Was there a dude?
Right?
Who dat?
Greg, you're the history boy.
You're the history guy.
For a second.
Serenade us about the...
Sukarno was the more based cool guy.
Shout outs.
Oh, wait, never mind.
Nope, never mind. I rescind my shout
Both of them are bad.
Oh, they're both bad.
Everybody's bad here.
They're both bad.
It turns out
bad
everybody
revolution,
just
not a good
collaborated
revolution,
with
folks.
everybody here collaborated with the Japanese.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, the Marxists did not gain a foothold in Indonesia.
Record scratch, freeze frame. You're probably wondering why I sound a little bit different right now. Well, it's because we goofed and gaffed so much during this episode that now we're here recording some filler. So, if you remember before...
It's not filler, it's important in historical context for the claims that we've made, all right?
Alright, so if you remember before, I mentioned two figures from Indonesian political history, Sukarno and Suharto.
Happened 10 seconds ago in the episode.
These are yeah, for about 3 seconds. But these are the two main historical figures who are responsible for what Indonesia looks like today. So here's a little quick overview. But Sukarno was the leader of the Indonesian struggle for independence. He was a nationalist. He was not necessarily he wasn't a communist. He wasn't necessarily like a fascist, but he was just an Indonesian nationalist. He spent about a decade in Dutch detention camps and prisons until he was released by the invading Japanese during the Second World War. At that point, Sukarno made, whatever you want to call it, a shrewd political decision to collaborate with the Japanese in exchange for their aid for so-called independence. Not that the Japanese were ever really going to give that to them. Once Japan finally surrendered, Sukarno and one of his little henchmen, Muhammad Hatta, they declared Indonesia.
Well, that was his vice president. Well,
henchman.
Would be vice president.
So Sukarno and Muhammad Hatta declared Indonesian independence on the 17th of August, 1945. Sukarno was appointed president. Muhammad Hatta was the vice president. And until 1949, the Indonesians fought a war against the Dutch for their independence, which obviously they eventually won. So at this point, Sukarno's leading Indonesia. He's one of the founding members of the non-aligned movement, which, if you ever opened a fucking book, you would know is something that Yugoslavia and India kind of were the main key figures in the non-aligned movement. Essentially, this is where the term "the Third World" comes from. The Third World didn't always have the connotation of it being poor countries. What it meant was countries that were not aligned with NATO and the United States, or countries that were aligned with the Comintern and the Soviet Union. So Indonesia is a founding member of the non-aligned movement, and what winds up happening is as time goes on, Sukarno is implementing pretty anti-imperialist policies. They're doing a little bit of land reform. They're also just not really letting the United States walk all over them, which, leads to some events.
First mistake. Big mistake.
So what happens is Sukarno starts to get more and more aligned with the Soviets, just because the Soviets aren't basically demanding naval basing rights and control over trade routes that go through Indonesian waters. So
crazy how that works.
Yeah. So, and as time goes on, these friendly relations to the USSR, the Communist Party in Indonesia, the PKI, starts to get more and more popular. By 1965, they are just about the most popular political party at every level of government. But what happens is, obviously, we all know that basically every military that's, especially when they're run by a fucking dictator, is incredibly right-wing. So the army starts to fall apart a little bit. They're divided between a left-wing faction and a right-wing faction. The right-wing faction, as you can infer, is being given intelligence, money, weapons, and supplies by the CIA and MI6. The United States starts to do its thing, which is pay off high-level military officials to get them to do whatever the fuck they want. So, on October the 1st, 1965, a detachment of troops, which, if I remember correctly, it's more than just a detachment. It was a couple divisions worth of Indonesian troops.
Oh, I think it might have been 7 divisions.
It was a couple of divisions of Indonesian troops and officers. Assassinated a couple of prominent Indonesian army generals and kicked off a coup d'etat. That same day, this right-wing group, which it's October 1st, 1965. This group of troops and officers is called the 30th of September movement. So keep that in fucking mind.
Very confusing.
So later that day, the 30th of September movement declares that it was in control of the media and communications and had taken President Sukarno under its protection. So, by the time the day came to an end, however, the coup attempt failed, the rebellion was put down, and a couple more senior officers of the Indonesian military died. But it doesn't really fucking matter, because American money always fucking wins the day. So after this happened, a military general by the name of Suharto, so now you know where the fuck I was coming from with that. Suharto took control of the country in what is in a more direct Western-backed military overthrow of Sukarno. What follows was thus a fucking genocide. No matter what you want to call it, a fucking genocide. This is the beginning of a 32-year-long military dictatorship that really its entire purpose was the violent repression of anything, further left than Benito Mussolini. So, real unsuspected executions. It's just executions. These CIA and MI6 backed massacres, between 500,000 and 1 million deaths. That might be an overestimate, might be an underestimate. I'm keen on thinking it's an underestimate, especially because the CIA and MI6 have kind of admitted to this, which means they're going to fudge their numbers just a wee bit. But
yeah, if they're admitting to it, then they're probably
probably way worse than they're letting on. But
they're not humiliated enough, obviously.
Yeah. So So if you were wondering who the fuck I was talking about before, this is why there is only really a right wing in Indonesia, and this is how the revolution died before it happened, really. Sukarno was not a leftist. Sukarno was not a communist. So the PKI rising in popularity was an amazing thing and was probably on its way towards some sort of proletarian revolution. There's a very good chance that it could have been one of the very few communist revolutions that just kind of came to power in an election. Generally, the West doesn't let that happen. So think of it this way. The last time it did happen successfully, it was Allende in Chile, and well, we know how that ended for Allende and lots of other Chilean leftists. So yeah, that's how that shit happened, and that's why all our palm oil comes from Indonesia.
So yeah, that was basically just how, quick little explainer as to our statements of, basically, capitalism ended up winning. It wasn't just like an ideological struggle where post-independence, capitalism won out and, the marketplace of ideas. No, communism actually kicked ass in the marketplace of ideas. They were whooping our fucking ass in the marketplace of ideas. But as is common for the time, the United States military just straight up orchestrated a coup, and probably over 1 million people died because of it.
They're doing their fucking thing, you know? This is what they do. They're evil, evil, evil bastards. We live in a fake country, and there's nothing you can do about it. Good night.
There's still, like, you see online, like, videos of people, like, deforesting orangutan habitats and, cutting down trees and shit to make way for plantations, and there's people like, damn, someone needs to go in and kill all those people, but it's like, that's what they need to do for a job. Again, this is most of Indonesia's GDP. Like, they need to produce palm oil if they want to participate in the global economy. This is their role in the global economy that was assigned to them during the colonial period that they now continue to inhabit because they don't have any other choice. This is the only thing people will buy from them still.
This is like when liberals are like, oh, let's look at them stupid out-of-work coal miners.
Yeah. And, of course, with the increase in palm oil processing, this is partially due to the fact that with global temperatures rising from global warming, because of things like this, the ability of geographic areas previously unable to harvest tropical crops, like palm oil, has raised dramatically, forcing Indonesian palm oil companies to develop an increasingly competitive palm oil output, and an increasingly destructive one. In this race to the bottom, Indonesia has had to learn to sink or swim in a global capitalist economy. With this externally imposed set of rules governing the everyday and economic development of Indonesia, what choice do they have but to play by the rules? If they have a capitalist ruling class, of course.
What is the process to create these palm oil plantations? What are they doing to the natural
Slash and burn.
environment?
Yeah, so essentially it's slash and burn. They cut down either mangrove swamp, which, by the way, takes decades to fully mature, or they cut down the surrounding area, which we can get into in a second, is just as important, and they just clear out this patch of land, and they plant palm trees. And these are horrendously inefficient plants. They take up a lot of space, not a lot of output for all of the fucking land that they have to clear for it, and they don't allow ecosystems to live in them. Like, primates can't forage on palm oil farms. There's nothing for them there. Neither can other wildlife, really. So it's just sort of like this ecological dead zone that's just dedicated to the production of palm oil, and it's like a sacrifice to capital, if you will, to be dramatic about it.
Another thing sacrificed on the altar of capital. That's from fucking Lenin.
So yeah, as the primate expert, I feel the need to point out something that I actually helped with editing this manuscript for this research. But orangutans, as well as countless other species of primate indigenous to the area, rely heavily on riverside mangrove forest habitats. It is perhaps one of the most vital components of the Bornean ecosystem, and yet it is routinely cleared and destroyed to make way for further development of Indonesia's plantation economy. Even as increasing regulations and the establishment of national, or in very rare cases private parks, has begun to protect strips of mangrove habitat, fragmentation, or disconnecting populations of wildlife with roads and farms, still has deleterious effects. Not only that, but the surrounding forests that are seen as less vital than mangrove trees, since they do not take nearly as long to regrow and aren't as ecologically specific, are pretty much just left completely unprotected and are allowed to be cut down by any company that, the highest bidder, or pretty much anyone who moves into that area. However, they are a massively important food source for foraging primates, because primates cannot get all of their nutrients, all of the things that they forage for from mangrove swamps. They live there, they spend most of their time there, but proboscis monkeys in particular, they get most of the food that they forage from venturing out into these outlying areas that are completely unprotected because they aren't seen as significant. Mm-hmm. So, thusly, I like to say thusly. It's a new thing I'm trying out.
Thusly?
Thing you're trying out?
Yeah, I'm trying it out. Capitalism has created a struggle between the material needs of the Indonesian people and the material needs of the ecosystem. An ecosystem that, if destroyed, would have disastrous effects on the entire world, not just as a massively important carbon sink, but potentially even food chain collapses and the extinction of entire species. So, yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on... Because a lot of people don't understand this, especially in conservation work, that you can't just go to countries that are entirely reliant on, like, deforestation and ecological destruction in order to survive and just tell them, hey, stop doing that, we need to protect these ecosystems. Because, yeah, it's important to keep the human race alive, but it's a lot less pressing to a starving Indonesian farmer.
Yeah.
Heard that. Yeah, like, the big focus with orangutan conservation is stop buying products with palm oil, stop giving money to this economy, and it's like...
Y'all, I know how we can save the orangutans. We should fucking embargo Indonesia.
Yeah, let's put trade embargoes so they stop destroying their habitat. Yeah. It's not like that'll starve out and kill everyone in Indonesia or anything.
We're in.
It's just
Let's do it, everybody.
It's a uniquely unfair situation where it's like we, like European colonizers, literally put them in this position where they have to destroy their natural environment around them in order to make money, in order for us to even give them money to survive in the economy we created for them. And now we're coming back and telling them, we actually want you to stop doing that forever so that we can save the monkeys. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's not like the idea of the just like completely immoral, callous logger just like cutting a baby orangutan in half in order to cut down a tree or whatever.
Do they do that?
No, they don't. But like...
I don't know. I saw a lot of Disney movies that said otherwise.
Yeah, these people are portrayed as the monsters in this scenario when it's like, we kind of are the monsters for forcing them in this situation. There's videos of, not that this makes it any better, but like there's videos...
You're saying we've been the monsters the whole time?
Are we the baddies?
We're baddies?
There's videos of like loggers who like feel really bad about what they're doing, but they need to do it for a job. Not that that removes the material effect, like impact of what they're doing, but what choice do they have? I don't know. It's a very frustrating situation for anthropologists who aren't completely blind to the history of colonialism and imperialism, which
a lot of them love to be that.
A lot of them do love to be that.
Blind to
don't
the
they?
histories of imperialism.
Love to be that.
Yeah, just you can save the orangutans if you there's an app that if you download it, you can scan a barcode, and if it has palm oil sourced from Indonesia, an orangutan screaming sound effect starts playing on your phone loud as fuck, so that you know not to buy it.
What the fuck? What the fuck? Who wasted their time with that shit?
It's well intentioned, but it's like we did this to them,
Yeah, it's just white people shit. We just love to do a thing.
That's some shit Amnesty International would fucking put out.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm so fucking tired. If you are in an organization that has most of its base on a college campus and you're not like making car bombs, you're useless. So.
You have a bunch of dumb college students.
You could get them to
can do anything. Really. Why aren't you building car bombs?
We need to bring back SDS. The good SDS.
And, like, the thing is, like, obviously at this point, the Indonesian government is only, like, giving concessions to the conservationists insofar as it still allows them to create industry. This actually ties in very deeply with the point that we are going to make in the Congo series, where...
Congo.
New vocal tick just dropped.
Austin's so tired about it. Congo.
There are this
folks. If you can't tell, we've been recording for like the past 2.5 hours because we did just record the Congo episode.
No, we want to give ourselves a lot.
We're ready to kill each other.
So there's this really funny thing where the same exact European countries and companies that introduced ecological destruction and just wreaked economic havoc on the Congo are now the ones saying, why are you guys like deleting parts of your national park and opening it up to privatization. And like the guy in charge will always say like, we literally will starve to death if we do not do this, you know? And it's the same thing with people who, you know, give more funding for park rangers and, you know, law enforcement to go around shooting people who are eating bushmeat like gorillas rather than, I don't know, giving money to the people that they forced into this scenario. There's, you know, I know we don't like to say the R word on this podcast. Reparations.
Yeah, this is all I've been thinking. All I've been thinking this whole time is like, all of this could be fixed with reparations. We should go.
We can't say that.
Nope.
Yeah, we're not saying that.
We could demand reparations.
Which we should be.
I feel like we could get our hands on. We could get our hands on.
We just
Charles.
don't have the sort of base for international solidarity. Like, Americans just do not have this. Like, we can't even get reparations for the slavery we did in our own country, let alone what we did to other countries around the world. And God knows Britain and France and Belgium aren't going to do that.
Okay, I'm going to say this, and I'm so sorry I'm saying it out loud. I just had a horrific thought.
Let's hear it, Chief.
As soon as you said around the world, Austin, I imagined a fan edit of the British Empire set to Daft Punk's Around the World.
And it's just every country they've committed atrocities in.
Yeah, it's exactly that.
I saw...
I mean, no, it's not that. I mean, yeah, it's that, but like they like the British, you know? They're like, oh, look at the British, you know, spanning around the world.
I saw something similar today where it was a Kesha song fan cam set to footage of the Wikipedia page of Nazi Germany suicides after 1945. They're just scrolling down the list.
I really like abstract edits. I like abstract fan edits.
But yeah, so that's
Don't worry, everybody. The Congo episode's not like this at all.
We took ourselves a lot more seriously in the Congo episode, which, if we didn't take the Congo episode seriously, feel free to just, like, shoot us in the head, because it's a very serious subject. And this is, of course, too, but we wanted to do this as a sort of in-the-middle prelude to the Congo series, where we're not completely serious yet, because we don't want there to be a huge tonal shift between now and our very goofy Vegas episodes we got coming up. But we also wanted to introduce the same themes and overarching ideas that will be present in the Congo series. And so we made this episode, and I promise we'll get to the rest of the voicemails eventually. We've got a lot of questions as well. With that being said, we'll sign off. Wait, real quick. Do we want to do... I'm assuming we're not going to plug the coffee in our Congo episodes, but do we want to do one last plug before we go into the Congo episodes?
What's up, guys? We have a deal on coffee for you. If you use code Travis at checkout at Monkey Cult Coffee, you can get 10% off your order.
You ever hear that noise, folks? It means there's a piping hot cup of Monkey Cult coffee waiting for you. You can touch in your friend's jeans in the truck. That's how you know it's Ford Tough, and it's 10% off if you use code Travis.
By the way,
it's got bourbon chocolate chip, and there's another flavor coming. I don't have it in front of me.
It's like toasted coconut rum.
Yeah, there's coming.
Toasted coconut rum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
This coffee was made to be mixed with alcohol, folks.
I had a cup of this coffee, unironically extremely good. When you put the creamer in, it sort of looks like hot chocolate, which is also visually appealing to me. It doesn't look like the weird, like...
Go ahead,
it doesn't
tell
look
you
like
anything
coffee.
else about food that might be weird for you? Any textures you don't like, or you need food to be a certain color?
You know, I don't... It's like Chief Keef said, $100 steak, but I don't like the texture.
So real, Chief Keef. You have that one locked and loaded, too.
He's been sitting on that one.
Yeah, with that being said, you can follow us on Twitter at gorilla__radio, on Instagram, just at Gorilla Radio Show, YouTube, also Gorilla Radio Show. We recently reorganized all of our episodes as a YouTube podcast, which I realized is something that you can do with playlists. So I don't know if that's going to do anything, but sure, it's that now. But with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this little prelude, and we'll see you in Vegas.
See you in Vegas.
See you in Vegas. Woo!
Viva Las Vegas.
Viva Las
Maybe
Vegas.
something like that.
Viva!
They haven't been there,
Las
everybody, so I know.
I've been
Day,
to
He's gonna
day
kill us.
2, we're gonna be talking about Ozymandias and the sand and stuff. It's gonna be rough.
I am looking forward to it.
I may be a white boy, but I'm not stupid.
Holy shit.